Welcome to the Practical Performance Tuning and Benchmarking session. I will be your trusty guide, Nick Lewis. I've been with Drupal for only a little while, 9 years, since 4.4, seeing quite a bit of change. And obviously love talking about myself, and I know you love hearing about me. So this is kind of an introduction to how to make Drupal websites scale. We're going to talk less about specific technologies and just sort of generally how you do this as a practice and make sure that your websites don't crash before you launch them. If you're new to performance tuning, it's kind of helpful sometimes to think about certain metaphors. One is that I've always thought it's kind of like being a doctor in a weird way. You'll find that you're looking at, you don't want to diagnose something without having any data by it. Like sometimes I hear people say stuff like, oh, well, let's just install Nginx and that will fix it. But that's kind of like, I don't know, a patient comes to you and they're tired and you're like, well, that's a symptom of diabetes, so let's shoot up insulin into him. It's also like a lot like detective work in that that's the most fun part of it is, sifting through all this evidence and then like finally finding, the thing that brought down the website. And it truly does look like a murder scene. So today what we're going to do is we're going to take a website that has performance problems already embedded in it, and we're going to just go through the process of figuring out what the hell is wrong with it. As most of these things begin, there's a victim, and this site gets actually quite a bit of traffic. It also has quite a bit of data in it, which is kind of usually a recipe for disaster, especially if you're not paying attention to what you're doing. With our first meeting with the clients, of course, they had lots of helpful suggestions for us, which we are simply going to ignore. Because, again, they have no basis for any of this. We don't know anything. And there's no reason to guess. And this is actually true 9 times out of 10. The problem is not that they weren't, setting up a good cluster. The problem is that there were just horrible things happening in the website. And that's basically what I'm going to show you how to do, is how to find horrible things that are happening in your website. There's several bad practices that we're going to go over, and I'm kind of just going through these because for the most part we're just going to do this live and not deal with slides so much. But these are some of the main things we're going to cover. There's also 4 tools that we're going to cover, and I will gradually introduce to each of these. But for the time being, let's just take a look at the website we're dealing with. And it is called Innovationeers Quarterly. It's a trade journal. And very innovative. It has all this stuff. Usually when I start out with a website like this, one thing I like to do is restart my SQL, because one thing that I've noticed over and over again, something that crashes websites is bad queries, and sometimes you can't see these because SQL cache is actually hiding them from you. So one thing I'll often do is just do a quick load test like this, and right now we already know we have a problem because the website's not loading. And let's see, let's go over here. And I lost my process list. Oh, that's fine though. A command I often run is SQL admin root process list. And, oh, sorry, watch. And right now, we actually missed it, but there was a really nasty query in there. What we would have seen was writing into temp tables, but no big deal, because there's another way to do this. There's a tool called Macket Slow Query Log, and in most MySQL configurations that you'll have, there is a slow query log, and those slow query logs occasionally can grow to the size of gigabytes. And what this tool does is it actually will break down, second. All right, where are you?
What'd you say the tool's called?
It's called MK Slow Query Log, and I'm going to have notes that I'm going to post after this session that has all the tools that I'm talking about. And sorry. So this is actually the command that I run right here. We'll just run that real quick. SQL. Sorry, one second. This was supposed to be saved in my terminal, but well, this is helpful. This is actually how you find your slow query log is MySQL admin username root variables.
It's RM minus R.
What's up, John? All right, there it is. So you can actually find a slow query log that way. So mine is right there. And all right. Oh. There we go. And in this terrible website, this is going to take a little while because there's so many slow queries in it. While this waits, one of the reasons that I am so concerned usually about slow queries is who here knows the difference between vertical and horizontal scaling? Okay, not many of you. So the difference between vertical and horizontal scaling is horizontal scaling is when the only way really to scale is to get better and bigger hardware. And MySQL is a good example of something you can only horizontally scale. And the thing to worry about when you have something that you need to horizontally scale is there is actually a limit to it. Whereas with a lot of other things like, say, PHP processes, you can horizontally scaling, meaning you can just add another box to them and do that almost infinitely. It's just how much cost you have. But what this is going to show us up here at the top is quite a lot. Sorry. We're waiting for the big summary here. Okay, here we go. So, I don't know if this looks better. But what it's doing right here is it's actually ranking our bad queries on this website. And we see the one at the top is actually taking 40%, 46% of the time. And it has something to do with node comment statistics. So it's probably a bad view somewhere. So,
The one below is the same query, so wouldn't that be 46 plus 25?
yeah, it would actually be 60.
Plus 6.9 plus 5.9.
In other words, actually that one table I've actually seen like to be the worst table in Drupal. Like, it's just really easy to write a bad view. And we're going to go take a look at that view real quick. Let's see if we can spot it. I'm guessing it's the most commented one right there. And in these views, and by the way, this speeds up later, they will actually give you, the entire view. And a great way to figure out why it's actually slow is to simply tell MySQL to explain it to you. So here we go. Explain. And it hated the query that much. So this, I wish like I could make this, actually look right, because it's supposed to look more like something like, this and easy to read. But the primary thing that I see here that is extremely concerning is that one of these is returning 86,000 rows, which means that it now has to create temporary tables on the file system. So when we first loaded up the site, the reason it took 10 seconds to load was it was just sorting these file tables. So when you're optimizing a site, if you have a problem like this, there's no need to do anything besides fix this problem first. You cannot cache your way out of this problem. It will kill your site. Luckily, there's a really ghetto fix we can do for this. We can't actually control the way views does a join because, as Mr. Mackey will show us real quick, well, one does not simply cache a bad query. This is why this query is bad. We have a left join here, meaning it's going to return every single row, and it's going to write to the file system, and that's why it sucks. Ideally, you'd be doing an inner join, which would only return the rows you care about, so that would just be quick. But again, it's views, so we can't necessarily control the join. However, a really clever hack that we can do is we can limit it by the total number of comments. Because we know, for example, on this site, no node has more than, say, 30 comments on it. So merely by setting that limit, we make it from a terrible query to one we can just deal with. And once we get that solved, it makes sense to start load testing. So we're gonna just go ahead and filter. You could. Yeah. Thank you, Jody. Yeah. Yeah, actually, it's still waiting. Wonder what's going on. Oh, there it goes. All right, so that query, in spite of, no, it still made a left join on node counter. So that query took only 13 seconds, which isn't really a problem, is it? So that's why we're going to go ahead and limit the sort criteria. But yes, normally with other tables, you could just, typically that would work. Views hates no one. People make views do terrible things, and that's why we have these problems. Comments. Good point. I should hand out prize to people that correct me here. Comments. Let's see. Counts. There we go. All right. Full displays. Apply and continue. It's greater. All right. So that was too much. However, it did not take 13 seconds, which is a very good thing. All right, 29. So yeah, that query took 1.3 milliseconds versus 13 seconds, which is quite a major improvement. So the lesson here is watch queries like that. Look at your slow query log, and there's really no real scaling you can do if you have that problem. It will kill you.
Why does that work?
It works because by limiting it to 30, it causes MySQL not to return 86,000 rows on the left join. It's just going to be more like 86 or 100 rows.
So the performance improvement isn't in MySQL or in the query, it's on the other end. So the parsing of all that going through it.
No, well, I mean, the performance improvement is in MySQL because MySQL doesn't have to deal with 86,000 results on one side of the join. So it doesn't need to put it on the file system.
Are you not missing some of the data?
No. But again, we picked to filter it by 29 because we knew that was a good place where like the highest comments were at like 40. And since we're only showing 5, like there would be no results lower than 29. So it's just kind of like a hack that to use in these situations. So now that we've got that out of the way, we could actually start load testing because we have something to work with. Anybody here familiar with any load testing tools? Just a few of you. Multiple tabs, that's a good one. In this one, we're gonna use Siege. Siege is a really ghetto one, but I like it. Let's see here. Nothing new. So one thing about load testing is don't freaking go crazy at first. Do not go. So this command, Siege Innovationeer's site, that's the name of the site. Concurrency is how many users I'm going to throw at it at once. A good place to start is maybe 10, and then limit it by 15 seconds. But yeah, don't start with 1,000. That means you're going to have to restart a box somewhere. So it's going to go. And when I'm doing this, I like to look at htop, which tells me what the load is. On this particular machine, you'll see like those bars over there each represent a CPU. And so that means that my maximum load on this machine is 8. As soon as it gets above 8, it's sort of like an 8-lane highway that doesn't have room for stuff to go, and stuff will start to get backed up. And again, that's one way that servers die. So I know that like I can handle much more than, say, 10. So we'll just bump this up to, let's see here, okay. We'll bump it up to 30 for 30 seconds and take a look at what happens. And yeah, that does not look good. So everything's maxed out at 100%. It's rising. And here in a second, it's going to go above 8, which is really bad. So we now know that we need some work. And we'll use 30 as our benchmark from now on. Yeah, still going. So if this was a real website, this website would be on its way to down. Now, there's one really weird hack that a lot of people don't know that we're going to actually take a look at XHProf real quick. Any of y'all used it? So what you see here is, you know, numbers, numbers, numbers. A lot of these numbers matter to some people, but generally the one that I only look at is exclusive wall time, which tells you how long did PHP spend in a specific function. And it's not what I expected to see. But right now it's saying we're spending the majority of the time in our database, which is kind of good to know. There's also some other curious things here. But one thing that I am seeing is a lot of evidence of the Drupal theme system happening. And this is the hack that I'm mentioning. You actually should never see that because there's a hack with views, or it's not a hack, it's actually a feature. But the views render cache, you know, the query cache? So if you set query cache to 0 and you set render cache to like 6 days, views render cache actually uses the query result as the cache key. So as soon as it gets a different result, it automatically invalidates the cache. So it's basically like a free auto-updating smart cache that there's never actually seen a situation where you don't want to use it. So simply making that one change real quick. We'll do it on front page. And it's We'll set this to 6 days because we can. And, oh, hey, me.
Wait, so you're saying if the content changes, then it just updates?
Yep. Because, yeah, the actual results that get returned are what actually create the cache key. So if your queries are fast enough to do this, then you have a really, really smart cache. And
Is there really a check in the code that says if you use 6 days, then you use this cache mechanism, or is there a reason why?
the reason I'm setting it to 6 days is unless the content changes, why would I want to update it? I guess I could see situations where, you know, editors like want to make an update to a node or something, but.
So it would be like set it for 1 day.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be 6 days.
Yeah, I just like doing things big, Texas style. All right. So as with any performance fix, it's always good to test what impact that had. Last time we were able to do 141 hits. Let's see what we can do this time. Oh, forgot. I have to turn off XHProf. Oops. All right, and all right. And just by making that change, we're seeing a pretty significant difference already. If we look over here, we've got a free cache, but and although stuff is maxed out, it's not nearly maxing out as quickly as it was last time. That's just a simple view setting. And even with, like, you know, changes in your server config, you're usually not going to see anything as big of a difference as that. So something to be mindful of. Yep.
So is it still running the SQL query every time? It's just not rendering it?
Mm-hmm. Because we fixed the really bad SQL query beforehand, so now we're allowed to do this. And again, like, you know, they say in computer science the hardest problems are naming things and cache clearing. Well, this is one pretty spiffy cache clearing device. Usually this is actually where I'd start, but who here knows about APC? Awesome. Have you ever seen what a huge impact APC actually makes? It's something else. When I'm doing performance audits and I see that they're not using APC, I sometimes wonder if they're testing me. Like to see if I like yell at them immediately and I'm like, why are you guys not doing this? But so we'll go ahead and turn that on and see what kind of impact we get. And it's, there we go. And it's not enabled right now. Oh. So the first rule of APC is nobody talks about APC settings. There's actually only one setting that's really important, and it's this one, it's shim size. I believe by default APC is going to come with 24 megs, which will actually make your site slower than it will speed it up. So always make sure to raise that one setting, otherwise it's not going to do its job. But yes. All right. Oops. And then now that we have this, we should see a major improvement. Again, usually when I'm doing this, I'll look at that, but it's only at like 2. When we started, it was at 12, I believe. And it's not actually going up. You can barely see it. And the reason APC works is most real programming languages, unlike PHP, often have a compile step, and PHP just compiles it right on the spot. And what APC really does is it just caches the compiled result. So that's why you get such a major performance impact. But yes, always use APC because now this site is actually in relatively good shape. and we can actually now dive in to find out what even further bottlenecks are. And so we're going to go back to XHProf. This is basically where we are right now, is like the step where it really makes sense to actually start profiling, because if APC is not enabled, there's really no reason to profile. Like, just turn it on.
Is there any reason not to have APC?
Nope. Other than you're testing somebody to see if they know about APC. Because if they don't, then yeah, they don't know what's going on.
Is there a new opcode cache coming in 5.5 or something?
There might be. I'm kind of one of those, like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So if I mean, like when something new like that comes out, I'll do a test to compare the two to see if there's any difference. But for me, like, stuff like that is evil, and APC is a known evil, and I know the ways that it can be evil. So still kind of slow, and we still have query problems, but they're doable. One thing that would stand out to me, though, is scandir. Under high concurrency, doing a bunch of directory scans is very, very bad. So if you see something like that in XHProf, immediately find out what it is that's doing that, because it's probably not Drupal. And in this case, it is a very evil-looking function called inolib block view rand image. That's not good. So we'll just quickly take a look at that. There.
So whenever you're like trying to hire somebody, do you give them this site so that they can find it?
No, but I actually have done something that's kind of evil. I've created a module that creates random problems that like make completely no sense through alter hooks, and it's called devel tools. So that, yeah, useful helper utilities. But it's not a bad idea. I mean, that would be a good interview question. Like, you have a site with a performance problem, what is the first thing you're going to check? And most people are probably going to say APC. Yeah, there it is. It's creating those random images. There's a really easy fix for that. Just cache it. I don't know why people don't do this more often. It's really easy to actually just, instead of, we're doing the exact same thing, but over here we're doing a cache set of the scan directory and setting it to 1 day. And for anything you see in, like, that's just kind of like floating out there in XHProf, like we just found, just doing this constantly can make giant improvements. You might not need multiple servers. You might just actually need one box with MySQL and Apache. So we'll see what kind of impact that did. And one thing that I am curious is this time is and from the looks of it, that's actually quite an improvement. Like, we're now seeing just crazy low times there. And let's see here. Yeah. Yeah, I think I actually did the wrong test. See, it worked, guys. That was the right one. Oh, yeah, it was for 30 seconds. So, yeah, this is just with views caching and APC, and now we're at 30 concurrency. We're seeing load times of like 0.5, or actually, I believe the website's down, is what's going on right now. Because I believe it should be more than 180 bytes, shouldn't it? I was just testing you guys. You guys got to stay on top of this. Yep. So yeah, one great performance improvement we can make is just throw a 500 on it, and that will take no server time at all. See, the problem with Drupal is that it loads. All right.
Over the day.
Let's try that one more time. Well, I'm definitely not the Drupal information minister, so I will not tweet that. Isn't it? Yeah, we should really actually be looking at whatchamacallit. Yeah. So it's a marginal improvement, but also one thing to.
Why was that just one tiny contract?
What's that?
It seems like you only went up 15 bytes from your 500 gig.
I'll check that one second. Yeah, I guess I should maybe like load the website just to be sure.
There you go.
Oh, there we go. Oh no. Nice. I swear I tested this before.
Yeah, that's what we all say.
Yeah, right. Those are like very famous last words. Oh, is it just?
I swear I tested it. I don't know why it went live and
Line 51. Some great live debugging right here. Or deprint.
I'm using the long version. You're supposed to save your carpal tunnel.
All right. So that is, I had that right, and yes, live programming, everybody's favorite. Can't get rid of that. There we go. I know, I kind of feel like those guys over there. All right.
What's a presentation without technical difficulties?
Indeed. All right. Yeah, all right, that looks right. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, I'm the expert at this. But no, I mean, we're not getting anything above a second, which is new. And then keep doing that. Though we are getting quite a bit of traffic on MySQL right here that you can see. When I'm watching MySQL admin process list, typically what I like to see is absolutely nothing. Do you guys, anybody here ever used Redis before? Cool. So what it is Redis is a great replacement for your Drupal DB cache. It's a lot faster, and it's quite a bit more scalable, and always taking load off the DB is a good idea. It's incredibly easy to install through whatever package manager you want. There's not a lot of setup to it. And we're going to just go ahead and quickly enable that. It's one of those things that you don't have to have it necessarily, but if you have any sort of significant traffic, then you're definitely going to want it. So I do, mainly because, well, I've been through so many nightmares with the Drupal memcache module. Redis is one of those things that you can just drop in and you can expect it to work, whereas with memcache, it's sort of like, well, are you on memcached or memcache? And are you on version 1.4 or 2.2? Because there's a serious wildcard bug with memcache and version 2.2. And you don't run into those problems with Redis. Though I would make one exception. If you're incredibly familiar with memcache, then go ahead, use memcache. Otherwise, if you're not, I just get started with Redis. But so we just enabled it here. This is in the Redis module. But let's see, where were we? Oh, how about that? So, by the way, when we started, we were getting about 162 hits on this test. We're now up to 894 doing the same test, which is, and hey, no new hardware. We just followed some best practices here. So we'll see if we can see even a bigger difference now that we have Redis. And we can see that it is actually working because before we were seeing all of this, cache nonsense going on here, and now it's gone. So my SQL's just kind of humming away, doing what it's supposed to do. And furthermore, load's actually acceptable. So we've actually, whereas before 30 would have killed the server, it's now perfectly acceptable within the load. And let's see if we have the same problem we had in the high performance doc. And indeed we did. So it went down to 625. And we had this in the high performance doc too when we were doing this test. This probably has something to do with my local setup. But if you're actually in a production environment with multiple web servers, then you're going to see significant improvements. But one thing I would note is that load did seem to be lower. And we can probably boost this up now to 50. Seems safe.
Sorry, did you say it reduced?
We had slightly fewer transactions, but now what we're seeing is we're actually now going from 30 a second to 50 a second. And load's a little high, which is expected, but how many hits a day is 50 a second? Let's see, it'd be like 10 million. That just blew my mind. Are we talking about sun seconds, or are we talking clock seconds? Or is it a leap year? But so in general, the lesson here is just the simple things that I've demonstrated today, maybe 90% of your performance problems just by using xhprof, parsing those slow query logs, making sure APC is enabled, for God's sakes. It happens. You might not believe it, but it does. You can get past lots of performance problems. Are there any questions? Yes, those will be at, yeah, I mean, a lot of this is frankly just shell commands, which are not. But those will be over at, let's see. Whoa, bad macro. Within a day, they should be at this address. And I will put up links to all of these technologies, good guides on installing them. It's always hard to show people how to install this stuff because it's like, well, but you used Homebrew, I used Yum, or I used apt-get. Yeah. But I'll type those up. Yo.
When you configure the Redis settings, is there anything you do anything to make sure that cache form doesn't get?
No, you don't. You have to do that with memcache because there's some evil sorcery that happens when you distribute form cache amongst multiple servers. But one major difference between memcache and Redis is Redis, though they're moving to a distributed model, it's not yet supported in Drupal. So typically the way you'd set up Redis, if say you had a master and slave DB, is you would actually put Redis right there on the master and slave DB. So if one server went down, you could use the exact same fallback mechanism to go back. Yo.
Question. Person that's been doing some development work on our site has contributed
Mm-hmm.
I know that's taking it off the server topic, but are there tools available for doing some sort of an assessment of the server in its relationship to the internal LAN as well?
I mean, I know there's tools you could use to analyze what's going on the network traffic. I want to say NetStack could do that. It's not really my expertise though. That's a little bit odd. I haven't heard of anything like that before. Yeah, just to figure out like what might be causing issues there. My best advice. But yeah, it's pretty sysadmin.
Are you in Austin?
No, I'm in San Francisco, but I'm actually from Austin. Back there? I'm sorry? Oh, it's not up yet. It'll be up in a second.
There's no HTTP status for future will be available.
No, I'll put some stuff up after this presentation. And anyone else?
Yeah, I have a question. Person that works in IT is thinking about moving our from Ubuntu on a Linux box to a Mac Mini using OS X server.
I don't know about that.
And I was just wondering, are we going to run into, what kind of issues are we going to run into? And are there these kind of tools even available for monitoring that?
They would be, though I'd caution that I've never heard of anybody doing that. Though maybe there's a reason to, but I'm not sure what they're trying to solve by doing that. All right, anything else? All right, well, let's get lunch.